Well, hello everyone. This is Graph Paper Architect, and if everything's working properly, we should be on YouTube and X right now. We're going to do a little check of that real fast. I'm just going to click on this other tab here. It says live on YouTube. Very good. And we tested X earlier, so we should also be live on X. So welcome everyone.
Thank you.
Who we got? We got Dean. We have Vicky. Do you prefer Cerulean? Do you prefer Rex? Hey, dude. What?
Cerulean or Rex is fine.
Great. Well, welcome everyone who is watching. This is the very first broadcast from Graph Paper Architect Studios and Tactical Fantasy Games. And so welcome. Hopefully everything's running great. We're going to be discussing playing a role versus role playing and wherever the streams of thought take us as we meander through the forestry of tabletop role-playing games and whatever else is going on. I'd like to introduce my guests. So Dean and Vicky, you are working Untold Destiny.
That's right, yeah.
Absolutely. And that is, tell us about that.
Vicky, do you want to take this?
Okay, so Untold Destiny is our brand new role-playing game, so TTRPG. It is meant for people who want that classic feel, who want to play campaigns. We've got a multi-D20 immersive system that's there because it's what we want to play and it's what Dean wants to run. We've been developing it over quite a long time now. It's gone through rigorous play testing, and I'm really pleased to say it's finally finished. We have a complimentary adventure coming out. It was end of Jan, but unfortunately, due to the fact I've been taken down by the lurgy over the last week or so, we've made the decision to push it out to the end of February. But that also means I can get a couple more pieces of artwork for the complimentary adventure. So that will be available for everyone. So basically, so you can play. So we're really looking forward to that.
Very nice.
Excellent. And how about you, Rex? What are you up to?
Taken down by the lurgy, does that mean you were sick?
Yes, I keep forgetting in the US they don't use the word lurgy. It's a very British term. Yes, it's. I was not been very well. I've had a touch of flu-like. I can't say it's full flu, but it knocked me for 6. And
so that's
I'm in the middle of editing at the moment.
That answers your question of me, GPA. Yeah, sick. The last week, well, half a week, really. I've just been knocked down. But yeah, pretty flu-like, and otherwise, hale and fine. Working on the house.
Nice, very nice. Well, that's excellent. And so, in your tabletop game, is it D20 based? Is it D6, D10s?
It's a D20 based, but it's multi D20. So I've taken a lot from the classic age. I was brought up on like the red box set D&D first edition, then mainly second edition, and from there. So we've tried to make sure the mechanics are straightforward. And to represent your skill at doing something, you get to roll more D20s, but select the highest. So if you become a master at wielding a sword, you're rolling 3 D20, you pick the highest, and then just add your relevant attribute. And that's it. There's no other numbers to come in. So it's very straightforward, but those multi D20s do the strange thing with the percentages in the background. So all the clever maths I wanted is nicely hidden away from the players. So it's nice, it's straightforward. And then we use all the other dice when it comes to things like damage. So you could end up rolling several sets of dice for damage, but then that's all your damage is. You just add those dice together, and that's it. You're not then looking at your character sheet for a plus or anything like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah.
Right on.
It works really well, and so from a player perspective, it's just really immersive, and I just really enjoy it, and it's really developed a lot over the last 12 months from where it was. We've had lots of play testing, and it's nicely settled to a really good position now, which is great.
Excellent. Excellent. So when you say finished, is it already in print, or you're moving towards printing, or
We're in editing.
Yeah.
So
editing?
basically it's all written, but it's now in editing. So this is the bit where I take it off Dean and I spend the time editing. So it's going through that rigorous, and then we get a final check after that. So the likelihood is it'll be end of the year by the time our core books are done. But what we've done is we've created the adventure on the side, which means that people can actually get their hands on it and start playing before we actually release the final books.
Right on. Right on. Well, that sounds great. Well, hit me up if you want to know if a crazy Yank hillbilly can make sense of your wonderful, elegant British, game. On a side note, that reminded me of a tweet I just saw from Jack. He was just livid. I guess there's now an AI tool to downgrade literature. I don't know if any of you've seen this. Yeah,
Yes,
it's to take hard books and make them easy. And he was like,
I got to be honest. If someone who wasn't going to read starts reading because of it, and then moves on to much harder books, maybe there is a place. But the problem you get, it may just be used to dumb down all books, and then
I don't know.
My biggest challenge with all of this is how long before they run the AI on the books. And then because so many people are getting them through Kindles and readers as opposed to physical books that can't be changed, how long before those books are turned into something else? And it's not as if there isn't a precedent to that. You see, Noddy was completely changed. They changed loads of. I don't know if you guys had the Enid Blyton books, Noddy, out in the US.
Never heard of it.
Well, they changed a lot of those. Even when they reprinted them, they changed them. So how long before this dumbing down of the books becomes the books? And that's my concern. So whereas Dean's like, it might get him reading. I'm like, nope.
And not to stray too far into politics, but until you start having some Fahrenheit 451 things going on.
Difficult to hear you there, Rex.
Struggling to hear you.
Terribly sorry. Can you hear me now?
That's better.
It's better. Needs some more volume, though. Maybe I can help on this end, too, but... Louder. Put the amp to 11.
Any better?
A little better.
It's a little better, yeah.
Okay. So I was saying, it also opens the opportunity for some Fahrenheit 451 things to be going on with literature as well. The addition of thought, the editing of thought.
Yes.
That's something I want to see.
I actually need to read that book. Absolutely do. It's one of the books I haven't actually read yet. So I've seen snippets out of it, but I've not read it end to end. So that means I am going to have to get that book now and read it with my ever-growing pile of books that I have to finish reading or get round to reading.
That's fair. Just to put the bug in your ear for that, if you are a lover of reading and what books actually mean, that book is about that.
I will definitely get it.
So anyway, that is a little bit concerning. Who's doing that? Is somebody offering that then as a service through a website, or are individuals just doing it through?
It's an app, I think. There's a new app out.
So
it's an app.
Yeah, it's an app, and basically instead of getting the Great Gatsby, you get the Great Gatsby in new form,
Chunked
and
down.
it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chunked down into whatever they decide is manageable bytes. We have our first chatter just to say, hey, it looks like somebody mentioned something about your game. Let's see what they have to say about your game there. Yeah.
I have mountains of dice.
Most people do.
Absolutely.
I don't think I even
love
have mine here.
rolling dice.
I have one set of chess decks I bought before my kids were born, and so they're a little old. And then I have one other set. My son has this, like, it's just so many. He's got tons and tons of stuff. I bought him a tackle box, a fishing tackle box, just so that he could cart around all of these dice and all of these sets. It's pretty fantastic. But yeah, that does sound cool to roll multi D20s, and I like that idea. And to sort of finish that off, I thought about that a little bit when they started talking about that they were going to move all of D&D and everything digital. All the games were going to become digital. You had to log in and get the books through. I don't even know what the name of it because I don't use it.
D&D Beyond.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, so if they decided to nerf a class or make an adjustment, or, oh, these kobolds are too tough, blah, 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 they could just go in and change it. And then it would go through all the books, and everybody's PDFs would update. And then now you have what they have, but it's also quite unsettling. Where I go with that is that, unfortunately, with the elimination of print medium, I don't think we're going to have any more accountability. So they're going to say, well, this was in the news. Oh, no. Scrub that. Update that. No. This was the news, or this was the news. Or maybe that website is just gone because... But we're going into the weeds. Oh, my goodness.
We're close to talking 1984 here.
Don't you remember? Don't you remember when we were at school, we used to go down to the library, and then you used to look at your old newspapers on microfiche. Right, I remember we're doing research projects to school, going through microfiche and stuff like that. Now, my understanding, and someone will probably correct me on this, is that allegedly somewhere they do exactly the same with the internet, and that everything that is on websites and everything else is recorded somewhere for posterity.
Yeah.
But whether that's true or not, I'm not entirely sure.
No, it is. It definitely is. And there's even, I saw once a documentary, there's some place over there that has actually collected every single book and newspaper ever written. It's a huge museum somewhere. They've warehoused it all. So, got a couple more chats in here. Pile of math rocks. Oh, here we go.
I gotta have a pile of math rocks.
Is justified.
That was the biggest argument I've had with my players. The damage dice was getting quite big when we did the high level test. And I said, look, I need to shrink it down. And every player went, no, we like rolling lots of dice. You dare take our damage dice off us. So
we formed a union. And we told Dean that he dare touch our shiny math rocks because we like it. And one of the things that because I'm predominantly a player, and when we were all playing, yes, we ended up with, we need to dice this, dice that, but rolling that volume. But the nice thing is, because you're not having to add lots of pluses here and there, all you're concentrating on is your shiny math rocks. I mean, isn't that just perfection? All I got to worry about my dice. And I love that.
Well, to bring up the topic, let's ask you this question. So someone is in a social situation or any role-playing situation in your game. Do they have the option of just saying, hey, DM, let's go with classic. I want to seduce the barmaid, man, whatever. I want to seduce this person. Do I roll for seduction to see if I do it? Or do you encourage players to be like, hey, you're looking pretty good in that apron, and I'm an adventurer. See my great big sword? I got a big sword here. What do you say? So which way is it? Or is it somewhere in between? How do you do it?
The Within the rules, it's always role play first. Describe what your character is doing. Get into your character, decide how your character is doing something. It's then up to the GM to adjudicate whether a skill roll is necessary or not. They may just role play it back. There are skills where you're not asked to make a roll because it's either automatically passed or it's impossible to make the roll. So, for example, in that situation, you got the big burly warrior comes in, starts, having a go at the poor barmaid. If the barmaid's kind of into that kind of stuff, there might be a skill roll to see how well they do. But if the barmaid gets this day in, day out, then no matter how good you are, she'll just shake it off and you don't even get to roll. It's part of her day-to-day job. She'll flirt a little bit and then walk off. So a roll is only done when it's absolutely necessary. Otherwise, role play first.
How about you, Rex? How do you run it at your tables?
So give me the premise one more time.
Where situation is that a player wants to accomplish seduction of bar person, and then you just say, okay, roll your charisma, bang, done. Fade to black, okay, good, come back. Or do you encourage people to actually look you in the eyes and tell you what they'd like to do to your beard, just to see if they can seduce you?
So for me, that probably strays into an area where I would rather let the dice decide. Give it, whatever level of description that it deserves, but don't live in that moment necessarily, because it is going to be a sort of a fade to black thing. Don't completely discount it. Let's just let the dice decide on that one. That would cross a line for me, to be expected as a DM to, necessarily role play that out, to whatever degree that it matters to the game. I would describe that, right? What matters is that event, and just in the briefest terms, it matters, but in depth, it really doesn't add anything. So, would I roll it? Or yeah, I would ask the person to describe the approach of the overture, and roll the dice and say, this is the reaction. And from there, you go about the rest of your evening here in the common room, or she tosses her towel to her friend who is helping with the she tosses her towel to the barkeep, and off you go, and she's fired. We just know wouldn't happen, right?
It's always the women who get fired, isn't it?
Well,
yeah. No, I
she
think,
does her job.
that works.
To some degree, it's got to be I think the classic would be the whole, I'm working, sort of response.
Yeah. Talk to me after dinner rush. Do you see all these tables? They're full. Maybe later. Whatever.
Or if I'm feeling rather cheeky, then her husband happens to be in there having a pint at the time, and then you've got a different situation on your hands. So perhaps that that player who wants to do that, even if they are the big burly fighter, that person might have to back down from the 5 foot tall, very determined husband. Who knows?
We also think
you're in a situation where you're going to have to do something that's actually going to define your character.
Yeah, and that to me is important, because would you, as that big burly fighter, would you actually stand up to this poor husband,
right?
Or would you just back down? And that's a real defining role play moment in my mind. So that's a brilliant example.
Exactly. And if he rolls extremely poorly, something like that might be the result. And then you actually learn something about that character.
Yeah, I
As you
like
say,
that.
a defining moment. And, how are you going to play it from that point, player? It's like, oh, you've faux pod. Now, let's see about your maturity as a player. Now that we've gotten the sort of the uncomfortable, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, ha, ha, ha moment out of the way. Now it's actually turned a little bit serious, and I can illustrate that in the game there are always consequences to every action.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're in a situation where you have to define yourself socially on a level that tells us for the future, what kind of character is this that I'm playing?
Mm-hmm.
And if you decide in that moment, well, they're a complete lech and a bully, well, then you probably might do something untoward, or to defend his own sense of self-worth, such as it is,
So
or
I think,
might be
yeah,
completely honorable and say he's sorry and buy that man another round. So that you give the player an opportunity to do something if they roll poorly. I would say, but I think some sort of a description of the overture should be made, and then let the die roll handle it. And as the DM, you have to interpret those dice, and it's not always going to be a smack in the face from the lady. There's you've got to have some. You've got to have some vision for some possibilities.
absolutely.
What I find interesting is that in talking with Rob, and for those that don't know, Rob Kuntz, if you don't know who Rob Kuntz is and you're watching this show, pick up a book. I mean, you can find out who Rob Kuntz is. Learn. He was telling me about some of a lot of the earlier days and in his designs and gaming designs, and that there's the narrative and then there's the mechanical, and that there are two different parts to that. And what I find interesting is that we're including mechanics, that each of us were talking about mechanics. At some point, there was a mechanic, a die roll, something that came in versus just a purely narrative discussion that you might have. Say, if I described a dungeon room and then someone says, oh, okay, I want to go check out the table. And then I describe the table and, well, I'm doing check this, but open the drawers or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's just as narrative, there's never a actual die roll or a mechanic involved. It's just simply we play and we're playing, and it's descriptive and it's narrative, and so that's what I found a little interesting in that, is it that was one of the things I wanted to discuss, was in role playing versus playing a role, where when I think about it, when you're playing a role, obviously it's very mechanical. There's a lot of, I am the fighter, I will go and kill XYZ, blah blah blah, roll my dice, done. If you're role playing, then there seems to be maybe there's a point when there's a mechanic involved. Maybe there's not a point when there's a mechanic involved. Maybe you're just enjoying the discussion and seeing where it goes and how this all plays out, and what sort of fun are our 2, 3, or 4 imaginings just going to start mingling and talking and wherever and whatever happens. So I thought that was kind of interesting. My next question to the panel then is, so trying to keep it pretty simple. If we are role playing and there are situations where that might come up. One was obviously the romantic encounter, call it that, and then how we would manage that. Or if we were going to role play a completely platonic encounter, something like negotiating a price for the job that you want them to do, or you're at court and now you're talking to the royalty of, why do you want me to sneak into the lich's lair and steal your pajamas that they have, what's going on with that? So something like that. How do you feel about those situations? Do you think that there is a mechanic involved at some point, not involved at some point? when
I'm
you're
gonna
role
give
playing
you an
something like that?
example.
Mhm.
So we had I try to remember which campaign it was in, but Dean was the GM, and I think it was when I was playing Aliana, and I was trying to convince the it was a large hall of elves, and I was trying to get them to join us in this endeavor that we were doing, and we wanted support. And I even went to the point where in the background I'd sort of made notes about what I wanted to say, and I did this big speech and everything. Now I will say I am rubbish at accents. I'm me.
I don't
This
know.
is the
Yours
way
is
I'm,
quite
I'm
lovely.
not an actress.
I don't seem to have one, but
My
go ahead.
but I can't do so. I can't suddenly sort of put on strange accents. So
Hmm.
I don't act, but I really enjoy being the character. And I think that's where I did what I would class as round the table, a small performance for the table, but
Hmm.
it was very much in character, and it was very much, it wasn't meant to be outward. It was my character talking and pleading with this council. That's right, it was a council to support us on what we were doing. And we went through that, and I can't remember. I think you did a roll at the end, but it was very much tied with the role play. And I think that the roles can help. I mean, if you've done a really good job and even still you roll poorly, I think that the actual role play needs to count for more than the role in that case, because but sometimes you also want to demonstrate how receptive the other side is. So I was going in taking on a council that was really quite negative. So it was ended up, that's right, it was a persuasion, I think, or whatever the equivalent was it second ed?
It was second ed,
Um,
so it was a charisma-based check. I think you
yeah,
had the proficiency, something like persuasion or
Disney.
diplomacy, I think it
Yeah,
is, in second edition.
yeah. Like, it was such a long time ago now. But
Mm.
I think that players, and I'm biased because I'm generally a player, when they put the effort in to role play their character, needs to be rewarded. And if a dodgy roll on a dice circumvents that, then you're just always going to wait to see what the dice says, and it removes that player agency, and it removes that immersion in the character.
Yeah, from my side, I can remember that encounter, and it was fantastic.
It's
Vicky
good.
put in a lot of effort to role play her character. The dice roll at the end wasn't whether she succeeded or failed, because some of the council would have been swayed by her words, others wouldn't. The dice roll was to decide how many councillors actually supported her words when they debated amongst themselves and how many resisted. And I think you had a fairly good
That's
roll,
right.
and it meant the majority put their weight behind Aliana and agreed. And I believe you were questing for the ruler's blade for the
Yeah, so
elves
we're
to attempt to
requesting for it,
reunite
yeah.
the elves at the time. So this was set in the Forgotten Realms sometime after the Times of Trouble, where the ruler's blade, the Coralline blade, had been lost. So the elven nation was a bit more fragmented. So it was a beautiful opportunity for me as a GM to decide, okay, the mechanics are purely there to decide where the role play goes next. How many people are behind her? How many people are resistant? If she'd had a terrible role, that wouldn't have been the end of it. It just would have been the council would have needed more convincing, and then, potentially they would have told her to go and prove herself or something like that. So I find sometimes the mechanics isn't a success or failure. It's more a random determination of what happens next based on the role play of the player at that time.
So then, if
Yeah,
you're
degrees
including
of
mechanics,
success.
sorry, go ahead, Rex.
There are degrees of success.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And so, do you find that you are making adjustments on the fly to decide that, oh, that was very compelling, that was excellent role play, so now the chances are going to be more than what I had originally planned for this character, and then
Yeah,
so if
yeah.
your little percentiles say,
Yeah. Even where you had a clear success failure, the role play would have shifted things. So even if the roll was pretty bad, you've already convinced a majority of those who were sitting on the fence. And a bad roll just means you probably got a 50-50 split rather than the whole council being against you, based purely on the role play. If a player had very little preparation and they went in, they bumbled it, you can clearly see they were kind of like just relying purely on the roll, then the council would be very hesitant to support them unless they got a very good roll. And then you kind of flip it back. So the role play really informs what the mechanic is trying to determine, rather than the mechanic saying whether a character succeeds or not. And then the role play is kind of a kind of window dressing around it.
It's an interesting way to handle that. I feel like with whenever it's social interaction that has gravity, gravitas, if you will, that the dice need to speak. They need their chance to tell story, and the dice very much do that, even in midst of fights. But that's a situation where, for me, and this is, of course, I'm speaking from the way that I approach things and my theory. There needs to be a judge outside of me, and for my part, that the way that 2E did that with they weren't skill checks back then; they were proficiency checks, and or just straight rolling against someone's charisma, or rolling, having a charisma skill, giving you a bonus, in a particular type of situation.
yeah, we would feel out percentages back in the day when it was us. We were like, you got a 50-50 shot, roll.
Yeah, back in my time, when I was doing 2E, what I would do a lot is, throw a D20 and do you roll under your score.
Yeah.
My charisma is a 12, roll. It's a 13. It's probably not going to be a very good success. Oh, it's an 11. Oh, you did all right. Because I realized real quick that the everybody's typical range is going to be right within the realms of a D20. So throw one, and let's compare that to your relevant stat. So really, the way 5th edition ended up going was, what I was doing back in 93. But at the same time, what that person puts into what they put into that speech matters. If somebody wants to give it a I think I'm going to be like this, and tell them that and the other thing, okay, make a roll, and you're probably going to be flat, no bonus or whatever. But if you make an impassioned plea that moves me, well, you might get a +3 on that roll. There's and that's where role play matters, I think. But the dice still get to decide ultimately. That's my feel on it.
Yep, that makes sense. Definitely. Well, I'll get to your text here in just a bit there. Savak, I'm just going to shorten your name a bit there. Sorry. So, yeah, if they have a great question in chat, we'll jump to that in a minute.
Yeah.
Or a great comment, actually, that goes along with what I was about to say. But where I was going with this is, so as designers, we're designers, DMs, Grognard TNG. We've been doing this a long time. We do a lot of this. in a game design, when you are considering a potential outcome, let's say we'll go with the story. You're trying to convince elves. I play dwarf all the time. Elves. Convince them with an axe. No. Anyhow, so you're trying to convince the elves, and let's say that you have the player, Vicky, who's excellent at role play, and she does a great role play, and that's going to adjust the outcome and how things can go. Do you feel that it's important to have it be possible for somebody else to be able to achieve the exact same income with no role play at all? Like, should your game be built in a way that somebody can go, dude, I talked to the elves, blam, roll, and they get 8 out of 10, or she, does her role play and then can still get the 8 out of 10. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm saying that right. How does that?
Does,
it makes sense.
Yeah.
Personally, if I can jump in, I would. Not everybody has the ability to role play the same way. And if I've got a player who's a little bit shy and they just go, oh, can I just make a roll? Then I wouldn't penalize them because they're trying their best at the table. But if they turn around and did a little bit of role play, stuttering, mumbling on their words, but putting a bit of effort in, even though it's not going to be fantastic, I would reward the player. And I think it's about rewarding the player's effort rather than the outcome of what the player's doing. And at that point, I'd be saying, yeah, brilliant. You get this bonus. Now make a roll. If I had a player who was always just very lazy, sat back, just going, oh, I do this, I do that, and never putting any effort in, I would never give them a bonus. It would just be a straight roll. Or sometimes I would be visualizing what their character's coming across as, and I'd be double checking. So you're doing the following just to make sure. And then the NPCs would react to that character. So it may be they're just trying to get away on a roll, but they come across as blunt and abrasive. And I wouldn't even let them roll. The NPCs would probably be, who are you to come in and talk to us in this manner? Get out. It's become a bit of a meme, isn't it? The player who just rolls the dice, gets a natural 20 and gets away with doing anything. So if I don't ask you to make a roll, it means the dice haven't come into play yet. But when they do come into play, they're making an important decision as to which way the story is going to go.
Okay.
Did that answer the question?
Yeah,
it does. It's just, so it was, the question was whether or not we believe that we should have mechanics that can allow people to achieve identical goals with or without role play. And you're right, when we were playing a game, we want people to role play, so we're encouraging the role play. But if we imagine that we have players, either they're shy or they don't know how, or they're engaged. I mean, they can be like, yeah. Dude, let's play. I'm here to play. I'm here to play, but they've got no effect, no way to actually role play, but they're totally into the game.
I wouldn't penalize them. Definitely wouldn't. That enthusiasm has to be rewarded. Yeah.
I still remember the first time I played. Now it was at my university War Games and Role Play Society. I had never played a game before, and I'd done this character. It was another elf. Sorry, and I was really excited about it. I'd always loved fantasy, and it got to my turn. And do you want me to tell you what I did? Do you know what to do? What am I supposed to do? I was really lucky that the GM at the time, his name was Tim, he walked me through it. Not only that, but all of the other role players around the table supported me and talked me through it. And I think that's one of the key things about role playing is we've all started, we've all messed up. I can't tell you the number of times I've walked into a situation and done something that I thought was, my character will do this, and I've role played it out and I've made a complete ass of myself. And it happens. But the fact is one of the things I've noticed is that role players support one another, which is what I love. And I think if you find a table where you support each other, that situation that you've just talked about, you can relax and allow people to start making their way through role playing. And with a GM that gives them a bit of leeway, that really works. And over time, they will get more confident, they will try more things, they will make mistakes, and they will learn from it and they'll get better. But isn't that what we're all here to do? We're here to have fun and play a game that we love. And that's why I love role playing.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to try to rope all this together. You're muted again, Rex, just to let you know. Okay.
Yes, I'm aware. Thank you.
Alrighty. Cool. I hit buttons all the time. I randomly, I appreciate it when people tell me. And my wife's not here to tell me, so I don't have a second chair. So okay, so here you go. First person or third person? We'll just go quickly around the table. The GM forces us to RP in third person as a way to mitigate the advantage had by players who are great actors and those that are not. It's very interesting. I think that's a very interesting thought there, that you would say, all right, you have to say, my character does XYZ, or Darrodin says this something, or instead of I do this or I do that. Dean, what do you think? First person, third person?
Personally, I prefer first person, but I also would encourage third person, because there's, in addition to those benefits, there's another benefit, which is you keep your interactions purely to your player. And one thing I have started encouraging players to do, and one thing I do as a GM, is I will often refer to what the character is doing, not what I'm doing. So, for example, if a guard starts to get angry, I'll raise my voice, or rather I'd say the guard raises his voice, and then I'll talk like the guard. So the player knows it's not me getting angry at the player, it's the guard getting angry at the player. And where there's players beginning to get aggressive with each other, I would encourage, go back, remember it's your characters, talk about what your character is doing. So I think that advice there is absolutely fantastic advice, and it helps keep people's minds on the fact that they're playing characters. They're not people talking to each other and getting upset with each other.
How about you, Vicky?
I like first person, but we also do it so where you're role playing in first person, and then you will sort of break out and go, and then we'll do this. So it's a combination. So exactly. So you remain immersed because you're in character, but you're also giving a sort of minor narration for exactly that reason. It means that everybody knows you are in character and it's not personal. I've made mistakes where I've done stuff and I've taken things too personally. Absolutely. And I like the fact that sometimes just say, oh, am I character? And now she will walk off over here and she'll do X, Y, and Z, just to demonstrate it's the character, not me. And it also helps keep me grounded at times. So definitely a mixture, first with slight narrative.
Gotcha. How about you, Rex?
So I've never played or DM'd where I made a restrictive choice on making people play in third or first person. I could certainly see myself encouraging the first person, because it's preference, right? When I sit down to play, the results of the game aren't just what the dice say. I don't want that to be, cold and mechanical. And there are people who only want to play that way, and that's okay for them. Not every table is going to be the same. And this lends itself back to the earliest days of gaming, where everything was much more mechanical, much more combat oriented, much more. It was exploration, and it was I turn left, I turn right, I'm making my map. Here's 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 a trap. One of your characters just bought it because they made a mistake, or so it was a much more, in my sense, it was a much more mechanical game back then, although it was much more exploratory. I recently watched the most recent vid, if I can call him out, Greyhawk Grognard. We talked about the exploration, getting away from exploration. It seems to be more the rule of the day. A lot more. There's a lot more social stuff now. But I'm going to bring this back around to the original comment about first person or third person, and the follow-up comment about from Zarian, I believe it was, who said that I'm not going to give a in-game dexterity advantage to somebody who can do a handstand over someone who can't, and I get that.
This one here. Player skill versus character skill. Don't let the athletic player that can do handstands in combat have it. Combat advantages over the overweight asthmatic player.
Sure.
Right.
Absolutely. So at the same time, you doing a handstand doesn't add anything to the game. However, this player over here who knows how to make a speech or is playing a character that, even if they don't, if they're playing a character who is supposed to be able to, and they give their best effort, I'm giving them a bonus.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And here's why. I like that. And that's it. At the end of the day, I'm the DM behind the screen, and I'm there to entertain myself just as much as anybody else. Right?
Mhm.
So making it such that everything has to boil down to just dice and nobody gets the opportunity to make my game richer and more interesting for not just me, but everybody else around the table, even if they're not the one giving that speech, and dumbing it down to the point where nobody gets to, that's a very socialist point of view. I'm not that sort of person. I'm the person, if I look at if I looked at myself as the coach in my table as a team of basketball players, they're not all going to play with the same skill, but at the end of the day, it's the team that wins or loses, right?
Yeah.
Yep. That makes
So
perfect sense.
when it comes down to just one roll, if that and if it's like the critical, sort of social moment of the game that's going to swing things toward a dark future or a bright future, the more you give me, the more I'm going to let that play in. I may not penalize anyone, but just because I give someone else a bonus doesn't make lack of a bonus a penalty, right?
Yeah.
So if someone is, shy, doesn't, want to do that sort of thing, or they just haven't come out of their shell, then, I'm going to give them leeway on that. If they make some kind of effort, that might be a big effort for them, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
And
their
they
effort
might
can
get a
make
good
up for the lack of role play skills. They can't.
Absolutely.
They're not doing the role playing, but they are in it to win it. And you're going, oh, okay, cool. Well, then you get the same +2 that Vicky got, even though she was an awesome,
Mhm.
Yeah. Is that where
So,
you're going with that, or?
ultimately, what that does is it encourages good role play at the table.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to remember that it's a collaborative game, that everybody, all of the players sat around that table. And normally, in most games, there are a few where you actually have verses, but normally you're working together towards a goal. And I think that's really important, because then you can all work together to push.
We're going to
And
get there.
support
We're
each
going to get
other
there for
as
sure.
as you're
Yeah.
getting
Are
out
we
of
all
your
working
comfort
together,
zone.
or
Yeah.
are we a bunch of chaotic neutrals that are all, it's what my character would do, running off? You try to be a cat herder, like, dude, come on, the dungeon door's out. No, we're going to go pick some berries. No, totally. Completely.
You will always get, you always get some.
Yep. Well, let's change gears for a second. We've talked a lot about, we're role playing, we're DMs, we're game designers. We want to make our games fun. We want to encourage role play. We want to be able to everybody to feel as though they can be invested, feel as though they can have a say and do things and be able to get results, even if they don't role play or do weird voices or do whatever. Great. Okay. So let's go ahead and we'll switch gears a bit and say, what is now too far? We're going to establish some boundaries. We'll say that we've got, on one spectrum, we've got the person who's like, dude, I'm in it to win it, but I don't know shit about talking like an elf. So I'm just going to say, dude, yeah, I'm just going to try. Boom. Or you have the person over here who's like, so, Mr. Baggins, it seems as though you've led 2 lives. And what is this hand jewelry you have? Blah, 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 blah. But we know one, we're on the one side, we've got the person who's sitting there like, oh yeah, I roll. Meh. Right. That's on one side of the spectrum. It's like, okay, dude, whatever. You're not even here. What do we do with the folks, or how do we get to where we're like, we get to where we're getting into mazes and monsters. We're getting really into the far. We're going, okay, this is too much. You are taking it to places where you shouldn't be taking it. Where do we think that we draw the boundaries in there? Because somewhere in there, we're finding everybody's having fun. And then somewhere we have, well, I wanted to seduce the barmaid, and I'm going to talk about how I pluck each lace of her bodice and slowly this and that. Is like, where do you get, you're like, or on another part of the coin, where do we get too far when we want to discuss things like, I will take my knife and go here on their neck and do this and do that, where's too far? Where do we feel that too far is? What do we do with that? When we've got people that are, when they take role playing to an extreme, or they take it to another extreme. I'll give you 3 extremes. So one extreme, obviously, don't get into porn, maybe, unless that's your table. So you can table that one. The second extreme, violence. Okay, we're not going to describe a lot of violence, but maybe some. Do we? We could either say, dude, it's that scene from Rob Roy when he goes, yeah. Okay, good enough. The third one is, where does it go too far when it becomes that there's not really a way to, you get pissed off because you feel like, okay, this person is an asshole because of what they've done, if that makes sense. So they've now role played something that pisses everybody off. And you're going, what the hell, dude? And you go, well, that's what my character would do. We'll go in a circle on my screen. Dean's first, unless you want to skip.
No, I'll go first. My first approach to this would always be to run the table as a PG table.
Okay.
So if
that takes care of the sex part.
Yep.
And the violence.
Gets something like that, it's fade to black if it's part of the story. On the violence, it would be what you would kind of expect watching a Marvel movie or something like that kind of cartoony violence. But if someone starts to take it to 24 levels or Reservoir Dogs or something like that, it's a definite, no, we stop. But all of this is caveated against how people are reacting around the table as well. And if a player is saying something and I can see the other players are becoming uncomfortable, I will call it immediately to a close. Bring the scene to an end, do a fade to black, let everybody just like calm down a bit, and then continue after that. A lot of this is reading the table. If you're with a very mature group who love the sort of guts, the gore, there's no minors present, and the whole table just wants to really get into the guts of what they're doing, especially when it comes to combat and describing how they're dismembering their foes, then I can't see anything wrong with that. But typically, you're always going to have a mixed table, and I play on the side of caution and try and keep it very PG. So PG is my kind of guide. I also do a lot of one-shots, so you never know who you're going to have at your table with the one-shot. So I just get used to the fact it's always this, you got enough descriptions, and often I will say something to spark the imagination and then just leave it up to the person. And that way, if they're young and innocent, they won't think anything of it. But if their mind's corrupted, like all of our minds, then their imagination will go flying into different places. But yeah, that's how I would tackle it.
Okay. And then the third category of player does something that is counterintuitive to the adventure, but it's what their character would do, or everybody's in a fight and they decide to sneak off by themselves to pick the lock to get the treasure because that's what their character would do. They're doing things. It's technically accurate if you've allowed that mixed alignment. We can get into that discussion too, but
yeah. That's a lot more difficult, but I have had discussions with certain. I've been plagued by power gamers around my table, and they're typically the worst when it comes to grabbing hold of power and doing things in their character's interest rather than the party's interest. Sometimes they get away with it, but often you just try and cope with it the best you can, and then after the game, if it's too disruptive, I'll have a chat with the player. And I've had to do this on only a few occasions where I've asked the player the straight question: do you enjoy playing the game? Do you want to destroy what the game is? And normally that's enough to bring them down to earth. And it's like, because what you're doing here is disrespectful and you're causing problems, and we're all here to play a game and to achieve a goal. And if you've created a character that's diametrically opposed to that, then that character's got to leave. And if that upsets you, then you as a player have to leave. And thankfully, I think there's only been a couple of instances where players have left my table, but typically that kind of a chat is enough to bring the player back to focus and make them realize that they're not for their own enjoyment, but for everybody's enjoyment. And it's not a show all about them, but it's a show all about what the party are doing and unfolding that story.
That's good.
Yeah. Typically, though, when I was running games in the YMCA back in second ed days, you would hear about the players that were disruptive, and they were never invited to my table, because there's the kind of problem where if you know a player is going to cause a problem, I don't want to run a game for that player, because it's a waste of my time and it's a waste of everybody's time around the table.
Yep. How about you, Rex?
So you had 3 questions in one there, didn't you?
Essentially, similar question, but in different scenarios. So how far is too far in sex? How far is too far in violence? And how far is too far in it's what my character would do, even though it's technically accurate by their alignment definition, by their character class, but it is going to mess up everything.
Okay. So we've definitely strayed from, in a sense, I mean, I get why you're going here, but we're definitely straying into the territory of, should you use safety tools? And, so
we'll go there.
Bring up a different can of worms, right?
No, it's there. No, it's completely there. We'll go there right after this.
First of all, I can tailor my delivery to table. If I'm DMing for a bunch of 9-year-olds, first of all, it's gonna be like herding cats, and you'll get a lot of, you won't get the words, it's what my character would do, but you'll get a lot of that, right? So Um, I don't DM for many kids, and 9 is the youngest person that I've ever DM'd for, and of course he was an advanced person, still is, right? He's in his 30s now. So how far is too far? It's a hypothetical. You have to come up with hypotheticals to be able to illustrate what the answer is to this question. That's difficult. I think largely you don't run into this. I think this is a thing that we stray into as a hot topic, a hot button topic to talk about a lot that doesn't really come up as much as we talk about it. There's a lot more discussion and fever pitch around safety tools than there is need for them. If you want my opinion, it's a thing that is sort of like a red versus blue delineator. Frankly, as a DM, to some degree, if you're using safety tools or if you're not, in this sense or that sense, you at the end of the day behind that screen have some responsibility to understand people. And I'm not talking about any specialized skills. Just are you a person who has a cognizance of what other people, how they're reacting? Do you have the ability to know, when things are crossing lines? Because there's no particular set of you know set of guidelines that is going to you could always come up with a hypothetical instance that goes outside this, strays outside the colors, outside the lines that you've drawn. Somebody can always come up with a way. Ultimately, it just boils down to whether or not people are I don't know, decent. You got to know your table. Tables are different. DMs are different. Players are different. Combinations thereof are different. You kind of, read the room. So where is too far? Well, it goes all over the place. If I'm sitting there with my buds that I've been playing with for 40 years, we're doing, we take a break from the game and step into the bar and pour shots of whiskey, and then we go back and play more. Everybody knows what everybody's doing there. And, but I DM at tables where I don't know anybody, right? I'll DM at conventions. And, yeah, so when it's what my character would do, even though it's, that it's throwing a wrench into not just any kind of story, but throwing a wrench into, well, he's going to get the entire party killed. He's going to get himself killed. Well, okay, that's bad enough. And if somebody puts themselves in that situation to go pick that lock, and I know that X, Y, or Z is going to happen if they do that, I'll let them die. Because, ultimately, in the first place, if you're leaving, I think you've described a situation where a person would do something where they abandon the folks they're with in a dangerous situation that could again, it's a hypothetical. So everybody can start coming up with hypothetical modifiers to that hypothetical, and we can get into this loop. But ultimately, if somebody is doing something that's disruptive, I like Dean's answer, honestly. Have a conversation and say, everybody take 5. You come with me, and let's go have a chat. And I think that 99 times out of 100, folks are going to be reasonable, and you can spell out, okay, you're doing something here that's going to have some gravity, that's going to decide some things for your character and for the group, and the chances are, it looks pretty bad. If you do X, Y, or Z, that we're talking about, and we know what they are in that conversation, the people having the conversation would know what those things are. It's like, here's what you want to do. Here's going to be the result. Is that really what you want to happen? And, they're going to be reasonable and go, oh, I didn't see it that way. Then, give them a heads up and say, because we, at the end of the day, we want to have a particular suspension of disbelief that we maintain, and a particular believability, suspension of disbelief, but also logic. If X happens, that brings on Y.
I call it realistic fantasy.
Fair enough.
That's the term I used.
Fair enough. Because I'm never going to run a game where no matter what you do, it's to your advantage. I'm never going to run that game. I'm never going to do it. Never going to do it.
No pillow fight. No pillow fight D&D with you. No.
Right now. No, I'm not
sad.
Mean, but if you want to do things that are especially after having such a conversation, that if you insist, it's like, okay, well, I've given you the idea. Here's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, as far as like sex and violence, I've already talked about what that looks like, in the bar scene earlier, and I think that's my take on it. The game's not about that activity.
What? I've been running this wrong for all these decades, man. It's not about sex and violence.
Well,
scrap my whole world.
It's not about boinking. It's really
again, ruined my game. Ruined it. Thanks, Rex.
That might be what some people's games are about. Okay, that may be a table where everybody is just in a competition to see who can seduce who.
I do have to admit,
awesome, but they would be the 0.001% of tables.
I've never been at a table that actually does that.
So I'm going to take that table, move it out of my conversation. Now, by and large, what we described earlier works for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Absolutely.
I'm not going to spend time concentrating on that one table.
Right.
In terms of violence, there's levels of taste, but I think as a DM, I'm going to rely on my own powers of observation. First of all, I've got a barometer in my head for what is and is not within the bounds of good taste.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll also monitor people's reactions at the table at all times. Is it possible for me to not see something? Sure, but I'm not somebody who doesn't see things.
Mhm.
I don't pay, I'm a bit more socially aware than most, perhaps, but I'm going to monitor people's physical characteristics. I'm going to be monitoring body language. I'm going to be monitoring, if somebody's like suddenly, their respiration has an uptick. If I look over and see that, then I know that I can, that I can modify what's going on.
Mhm.
But again, this is a thing that we talk about way more than it ever happens.
Yep.
So that's about as far as I'm going to go around all that.
All right. How about you, Vicky?
I think
How
on
far is too
on
far when it comes to sex and violence? And then how far is too far when a player wants to be accurate, but it's counterintuitive to the game?
oh, I'm actually going to start with that. I'm going to go backwards because, why not? I think when it comes to players who do what their characters want and disrupt the table, I think they have to be spoken to. And I also think you also need to monitor how the rest of the table reacts as well, because I've been at multiple tables where people have done this, and it actually becomes, oh, for the really, and it takes you out of your character, and it makes it difficult then when you're trying to. I tend to throw myself into games, and I really enjoy. I spend time building up my character, and then when you get Bob come along, who derails the campaign and does something purposefully, sometimes it feels, to take it off track, I think the only thing you can do is have that conversation. And I think the GMs tend to notice when that happens, and then hopefully that conversation puts it back on track. I think that if I've got something my character wants to do that I know would absolutely disrupt the table, it would make me think twice. Now, as I've got one scenario where I really wanted to do something as a player, right? Because it was cool and it was powerful, but I also knew as my character that that's not what the character would do. And this was, funny enough, tied up with that sword I wanted to go looking for, and I found the sword. So we went on this big campaign, we got this sword, and I had the opportunity of wielding it. Some nasty GM had me with visions of me leading armies of elves, holding this sword aloft, and my player ego was like, oh yeah, hey, that'd be well cool. But I knew my character, that's not what she wanted to do. But Dean will tell you I ummed and ahed, because it was like, because this was a conversation between me and this intelligent sword, and I ummed and ahed for a good 10, 15 minutes. I went with what my character would do, but it was hard. And that's a bit of a tweak on that. So when somebody does what their character would do, but it counters the game, I think that that person needs to think about the overarching. I mean, I found out later, many years later, that if I'd have picked up the sword, I'd been dead. So I was very pleased I didn't. And what I did was promise the sword I would find its rightful owner and carry it around, basically trying to find its rightful owner for a very long time. But I wasn't allowed on the back of a horse leading hordes of elves to glory, which would have been cool. So I think there's got to be a balance there. But we've had players destroy whole universes because it's what their character would do and completely derail games, and that was quite sad. And at that point, it can be really demotivational for the rest of the players. So I'd say at that point, you've got to let the GM talk to them. That is the only way. So that's what my character would do. The other one was violence. Dean is very good at horror. He doesn't run horror games per se, but I have sat round the table with him where poor Emily has been like, it's really scary. But I think there's a difference between horror and violence. There's that imagining things, and it's what level that goes to. I think if you're talking about, I find human violence and fantasy violence are two different types of violence. So, when you get the beginning of certain films, it says, this contains mild fantasy horror. That's the sort of level I think we should go. We go for the fantasy horror. We go for the fantasy side. It's very different from pinning someone down onto a chair and ripping their fingernails off and going into minute detail of description. That is not something I want to sit through. However, fantasy violence, absolutely bring it on. Yeah, exactly. You're on mute. So the buttons, it's the buttons. Try again. I think somebody's come in and muted Graf when he's not looking. In that case, they've taken over the show, which is now mine.
So, I know you're all wondering why I called you here.
But when it comes to sex, and this one is the one I wanted to end on, right? Fade to black is your friend, right? You do not want to go into detail. You do not want, it is nothing more cringy than having that round the table. It's, oh no, I don't want to know. No, thanks, no. Again, it's about that. We're all adults. We all understand it. Hey, we all understand it. Thank you, Alfie. We all understand it. Our imaginations can go there. I do not need a description round the table. And I don't think many of us do, to be quite frank. I think those that do tend to want that in other areas, and it leaks into the game. And quite frankly, I quite enjoy the bit of flirtation, fine. Bit of NPC sort of back and forth, not a problem. Anything else? Nah, we just fade to black, disappear off to a room, whatever you want then. But it does not have to be played around the table.
No. Exactly. Yeah, that makes sense. And so I will tie that up and grab these chats. And sorry, everyone, for the technical difficulties. I'm glad that I'm back.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
We were about to form a coup and we were going to take over, weren't we, Rex?
Oh, yeah. So what I'm hearing is, and I was hoping that this would be exactly what we got here. So thank you, all three of you. So fantastic. Hopefully any of you that are watching, and because you're watching because you're wondering about it, you're like, well, maybe you've never role played. Maybe you grognard. Who knows? At whatever level you're at, you're wondering maybe, what's the difference between playing a role and role playing? How far can you go? How far should you go? That sort of thing. And so this has been fantastic. And what I'm gathering from this is a couple of things. One, Dean brought up a very good point. He said PG-13. And that right there made a very clear mental image of this is what this is going to be. This, because I understood what PG-13 is, right? If you don't know what that is, okay, well, you know what I mean? It gave me like, here's the stamp, boom. This is what we're doing. And now we have our boundaries, which then brings us to this lovely piece of chat from Zarian. Safety tools go far beyond the X card. I don't use formal tools, but I do have a conversation with the group during session 0. I get this. Makes sense. You having a conversation. And that was a main thread through just about everyone. conversation. Have a discussion. Find out what you're doing. Even if it's just a matter of, hey, everyone, we're playing PG-13. Boom, done. That's good enough. Rex brought up another great point, is that this stuff, it's on the internet, but remember, the thing is this. So when we're looking at the internet, remember that basically, if you can imagine that you're a scientist that is staring into a petri dish, that is staring at one microbe, that is staring at the hair on that one microbe, that one thing, and you look through that microscope, okay? If you've never looked through a microscope, it just everything blows up. This is your whole world, right? When you're doing that on the internet and you're looking at the forums and you're looking at the phone or you're looking at whatever and you're gathering all this information, it seems like, oh my God, this is the whole world. But it's really a very, very vocal minority or a few people. So you get, and you come across with that bias of going, oh my God, it's like this and people are horrible and blah, blah, whatever. No, this is a very tiny, tiny thing that don't let it become your whole world. And remember that it's your game at your table. You run it the way you want to. Have your own mind, pay attention to what's going on around you, and we understand that the world is different now. I mean, a lot of us are playing, well, the world's not different, society is different, technology is different, and we play with people that a lot of times people will just play. But he brought up a very good point, running a convention game versus running a game for your friends. And the terms that I use when I discuss this with people is there's professional play and then there's personal play. In professional play, hey, man, this is PG-13. We're doing this. We're doing this. Now, if I got somebody that plops down at the table and like, okay, well, I want to seduce the barmaid and da-da-da-da, and that's important to them. And maybe a few other people are kind of like, oh God, are we going to do this? We have an hour before I have to go try to get a churro and then maybe get a signature from Larry Elmore. What am I doing? Whatever, and you go, okay, you want that person to feel good, but you want everybody else to feel good, as I'm totally out of focus. Right? And go, okay, dude, throw it. Blam. He rolls a 59. Good. Fade to black. Moving on. Now he's had his jollies. Everybody can move on with the game, or you don't. But you know what I mean? Something like that. That's more of a professional, or you just don't. You're just like, dude, we don't do that here. We're at a con. We're not going to do that. Just kill the goblin. That sort of thing. But professional play is completely different. It's just as though, here we are, we're having a discussion with the world, would be completely different than what we talk about in the green room. But, it is what it is. So those are some things to consider. If you're watching this and you're going, okay, well, think about what you're doing. Think about who you're with, why you're with them, and what's the setting, and what are you trying to accomplish. And then Vicky brought up, a similar point, but very much that, she becomes her character. She thinks about her character. She's thinking as her character and having the conversations with the sword or whatever, in character. And it's not going too far. And that was one of the points that I wanted to bring up, was that, there's too far. And we see this in the teeny tiny examples of the internet. Come on, camera. Where people go bonkers, right? That's too far. It's like, whoa, dude, back off a bit. There is a line between the character and the player. There's a player, there's a character, and there's a line in between the two. How permeable that line is depends on the person. Whether or not they can completely compartmentalize depends on the person. But the reason that I bring it up is another one of these excellent chats here. TTRPGs are a hobby filled with socially awkward people. Having safety tools helps a lot in many circumstances, because socially awkward people do awkward things without thinking. Right? So, I'm down for some safety tools. We never really called them that. It was like, dude, what are we doing? Okay, it was going to be like Conan. It's going to be like Willow. It's going to be like Jason and the Argonauts. It's going to be like Lord of the Rings. It's going to be like, you're just making the settings, or it's going to be PG-13, or it's going to be NC-17, or it's going to be some other letters out of the alphabet, never to be ever on the internet So
Hmm.
anyhow, but that's the way it is, and it's like cool. And it gives them the opportunity. That was part of why I wanted to have this discussion, because hopefully people will start to get this idea of how do I even do this freaking game? How do I even play this freaking game? Well, this is what you do. And you get to try to be awkward, try to not be awkward, have fun with it. We have a Lost Lore subscriber. Subscribe to Lost Lore Scholar. He says, hello. Thank you very much. I'm getting there. It's not a Rex, but it's getting there. I'm working on it. It's good to see you here. And so yeah, I mean, it's like because you're going to go on the internet and you're going to see all of these crazy things and go, well, what's too far? What's not too far? What are we doing? What are we not doing? What's even the point? So what's the point of any of it? I mean, why are we doing what we're doing? We'll bring it back around a little bit here. We were discussing, what my character would do. And that was the other thing, is that everybody seemed to have a similar, you can do what your character's going to do, but be mindful of how that's going to work. I mean, there's two sides to this coin. You're the player, and then there's the character, and we're there to enjoy ourselves and have a fun, enjoyable experience. If your goal in mind is to come to the table and run roughshod over people or do whatever you're doing, blah, 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 you can get bounced from the game. If your goal is to play a game with people and have a, experience where we're all together, one of the things we discussed or discovered back in the day was mixed alignments just did not work. Said no. We tried it. We've tried. I mean, we played since forever, right? So we've tried it all. We've ran pure evil. We've ran pure good. We've run mixed. We've run none. We've run everything. And I think that that's a mechanical solution that helps with the social contract, if you will, that people are signing up for this social experience, and they want to get on board with this social idea and say, well, these are the characters. Yes, yours is the thief. However, maybe your thief doesn't need to go full Kender on everyone everywhere and get us killed. Oh, you're a barbarian. That's fine. I get it. But, so the guard shifts his weight to his left foot to his right foot while he's having a discussion with the party doesn't mean that you flip out and try to kill him and everybody because now you think he's, that's from your tribe. That means I'm preparing to kill you or whatever. I mean, trust me, these aren't hypotheticals. We've done it over the years. Yeah. Wow. Plenty of that because we always experimented and it was a lot of fun. Cat. Maybe Jack wants to pop in. You've got the link, Jack. Let me know. You're welcome if you want to pop in for a minute. But because I'm all happy with drop-ins, I'll be monitoring. I've got the Discord up over here. And so that was, I appreciate that. Thank you, all of you. I think that's fantastic. That's where I wanted to take this. The next place that I wanted to go with it, now that we're discussing that line, is the other thing that I tend to see on the interwebs is that people get very, very personal, very much like, okay, and I think that, we didn't have that a lot back in the day, at least not in my experience. It was like, this is a game. We're having a game, whatever. So what I'm going with that is if you are trying to discern a person or you're sit there to have a game with this person and I'll go with the classic. I've done this a bunch of times. I play dwarf all the time. Sometimes my dwarf is pre-coffee dwarf. Sometimes my dwarf is post-coffee dwarf. If I am pre-coffee dwarf, I have resting dwarf face. And I'm like, are you done talking? Are you done? Can we go do the thing now? Ay. maybe your ears should be like this because as much talking you do, blah, 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 blah. Go hug a tree. Okay, I mean, you're playing, and I'll try to read the room or get an idea, and letting people know that I'm not, trying to irritate them or, be pissy, but that's it. The character does what he does. So that's the first half of this question is, how do you think that people can come to understand that, or are we even concerned about it? I mean, if people can't grasp the idea that this is a game, people are trying to play a character, that it is not them, do we believe that? I use acting as a reference. Like, I don't think, Caprio is actually what he was from Django Unchained. I don't think that he would have a job in Hollywood if he was truly that way in real life, but he played a great character. If you don't know that reference, I'll just spell it out. A actor can portray a villain or something that is completely racist, sexist, phobic, crappy, evil murderer. Hell, Robin Williams even did it. He was a horrible psycho murderer. I can't remember the something with photographs. Whatever. If anybody knows the
In Alaska,
tell me, chat.
right?
Yeah, but it's like, who's going to believe he's actually that way? Probably not. And no. So that's where I'm going with that. If you are playing this game, and do we even care? Do we think that that's the 0.1% on the internet having that problem? Or do we think it's a problem that people are their characters and then they go online and they're like, oh, they did this, so they've got to be horrible, or they did that, so they've got to be horrible. And the second piece to that is, as designers, because we've seen this, if you have slavery in your game, you're a horrible person. If you have, racism in your game, then you must actually believe that and have that be part of you. It's like, I am an author. I write these modules and there will be all of those horrible things in them. I am not that way. Is it in the game? Sure. Could it be in the movie I write? Yeah. Does that, they don't actually have that part of themselves. So there's the part of that. Do we want to discuss that? Do we think that that's somewhere
worth
we need to go
discussing.
to tell people?
I think
We'll go the
it's
other
like
way.
everything. Yeah, I'm going to start.
Other direction. Vicky first.
Yeah, we're going to go anti-clockwise. So when I have a look at that, we've played games where we've either been going up against, say, the Zentarim. If I think of some of our D&D games where we were actually anti-slavery and stuff like that. We've also played games where we were working in a society where slavery was perfectly allowed, and we were doing things like chasing down slaves that had escaped because they had to be returned to their rightful masters. And that level of what you would have on your good scale depended on the society we were playing in. Now, does that mean that we were nasty people? No. Does it mean that the game was nasty? No. But it allows you to explore different societies, different things, and none of it is real. Now, when you're talking about sort of what I class as character bleed, where your personality comes out through your character, unless you're a really good classically trained actor, there will be points where that happens. Because I don't know about you, I've not been to drama school, I've not been taught how to be an undercover agent, and working for MI5. So as much as I try and stick to my character, you do tend to get a little bit of what I call bleed through at times. Once I was playing a drow, and her name was Sinafe, and someone put me in a situation where, in order to move the story forward, I had to sacrifice a lot of my people. And personally, I really struggled with that. But the character had to weigh it up. And that I really struggled with. But it didn't mean the situation was wrong. Churchill's had to do it. Loads of people have had to do it in real life. And it didn't make my character bad or wrong for having to go through that. But did I struggle with it a little bit? Yeah, I did. But isn't that part of role playing, is putting yourself out there? None of us. I can guarantee that you get lots of people playing the game who have had acting training and therefore they want to make it performative. But the rest of us are just trying to be our characters as best as we can. And that's where having sort of personality traits to guide you so you can try and logically think through it helps. But yeah, there can be bleed at times. But when people say around the internet, and we all know that it comes up across the internet, that this is bad for this reason, a lot of the time it's people applying black and white logic to something that isn't black or white. Our stories, our societies live in shades of grey in reality, and your games around the table will be the same, and so will your characters.
So speaking of color, I have an important question for you on your drow. Purple or jet black?
Jet black.
Okay.
Jet black.
We can continue now. I won't have to.
Coal
Yeah.
black.
Absolutely.
Black.
Yeah.
Jet black. She was a priestess of Elistray.
Ooh. Yeah. I can just imagine that conversation in your head. You're just like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to kill those people. Like, yes, add more. Shovel some more on there.
And at the end, when we killed the big bad, I actually ascended to godhood. And
Nice.
The phrase that, and I remember it to this day because it was a definite me moment rather than my character moment, a bit of bleed through, because Dean said, "What do you want to do to this big bad guy?" And I went, "I want to squash him like a bug." And I had him between, I squashed him like a bug, and it was really good, very satisfying.
Nice.
And I think the character herself would have been a little bit more, forgiving, but I wasn't.
Nice. Oh, nice. So how about you, Rex?
But yeah.
Okay. Once again, repeat the question.
Oh boy, where are we going with this? Someone remind me. I went into coal black drow mode of murdering, and I was like, "Yeah, murder everybody." Yeah.
Talking about characters where you've got your
bleed through. You were saying, bleed through.
and also,
so
are you bad versus
right.
Will you be perceived as bad, and will your game be perceived as bad as a designer if you're like allowing things
the two
like,
sides of that was whether or not is the
things you allow in your game, does it make you bad?
Or is the player character bad because they do bad things, or is the designer bad because they have bad things in their game?
To the question, the answer to both questions, I think, is no. My games are going to have human nature in them. We know that atrocities have happened.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say my games, I have to differentiate. If I'm running a long campaign. Good night, Jack.
Good night.
Rest well, sir.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm running a long-term campaign, then I'm going to be running with some, very mature people who are not fragile, rated R, whatever, probably more like PG-13, but have your moments. But no, I mean, slavery is one of those hot button issues that I think we talk about more than it's a nice litmus test for everybody. But that's been a part of human existence forever. And of course, we know that it is, an evil thing. Of course we do. But sometimes I want to portray an evil world.
Mm-hmm. Because otherwise you're sitting around baking muffins all day because you got nothing to fight. There was one line that I was just remembering from, I was rewatching Flight of Dragons, and I shared it on my X. I was like, hey, this is a master key. People, you catch this, get this. And Green Wizard, he says, I'm paraphrasing, one of the horrible truths of the world is that good is completely impotent without evil to go against. And I went, huh, that makes a lot of sense. Because what are you going to do? You're going to be playing muffins and baristas because you've got the big bad is the foam machine because it doesn't work right or something. I mean, like, what are you got?
Yeah, if
makes sense.
If I'm DMing a game for 12-year-olds or 13-year-olds or whatever, innocent people, they don't need to deal with any of that.
Yeah, we didn't do that when I was gaming with my kids or for kids. No, yeah, that's.
And when I was that age, that kind of stuff was not in my games, right?
Oh yeah.
It was. I didn't have a grasp of those things, but as you do age, as you are more experienced, as you do learn more history, as you do gain more of an understanding of what motivates people toward good, toward evil, and everything in between, then the game itself can take on nuance. Now, that's not everybody's. Some people's games don't take on nuance, and that's fine. Our game is. You might hear somebody say, "Well, our game is just, we're just exploring one dungeon after the other, just dungeon crawls. That's all we do. We're gaining experience and gold, and I got a better magic item, and that helps me in the next fight, and that's as deep as it gets, and that's fine. It's not my game, but it's fine. I'm going to challenge players at my real table. I'm going to challenge them to determine how their characters would act around things that are difficult subject matter, things that are morally, significant questions. And you could look at, Star Trek as an example. I mean, that is a show that dealt with moral questions all the time, deep moral questions. And they did it in a way that was tasteful. And they did it in a way that nobody's coming after them saying, you should have used safety tools in the show. They didn't do that, right? Of course, in television, you've got censors. They had to do everything in a certain amount of in certain amounts so that good taste is still observed, and it should be. So yes, to whatever degree that it is necessary to tell a complete story, I might look at almost any topic, but certain things have to be handled extremely carefully. And, and that very much depends on the table, but I think, at the end of the day, No, I don't think touching on really probably any particular subject makes you a bad person. It might make you a more aware person. I don't know. That's my best answer.
I don't know. How about you, Dean?
Right.
Did you have it in your game? Did you put it in your game? Is racism in your game and sexism and isms, and is it in there? Untold Destiny?
It's based on a medieval society that does not have technology or industry to help them. So, of course, you are going to have a number of things. Guess what? If you maim yourself and end up in a wheelchair, your adventuring days are over. Yeah, there's no magical wheelchairs to suddenly allow you to do all sorts of things. That said, if someone picked up Untold Destiny and they wanted to put that magical wheelchair in and have that as part of their campaign, do you know what? Go ahead. It's your game, your table. You can do what you want. If you don't want to have a certain nation having slaves, take out the slavery. If you think that is not applicable to your table or your players, and I think that's where we should be. The problem we've got is we will create what we believe to be believable worlds that you can immerse yourself into, worlds that have this conflict, good versus evil, shades of gray, worlds that are based on our history, as distasteful as it has been in places. And then we get a group of people saying, you're not allowed to do that. And it's like, and that's really what I take objection to, which is if at your table you don't want that, fine, you do that at your table. But if at my table I want this world, which is rich and deep and has all these things the players can go up against, and to, you get a bunch of players who come across a slave lords going through their territory, and wow, the look in their eyes of, yeah, we can teach these guys a lesson, and they go piling in, they go freeing the slaves, the tables, joyous. You won't get that if you and Rex, you covered it. If you got no evil to fight, what's the point of being good? Because there's nothing to do, and it's creating that richness. But if a table decides that they don't want to do that, then it's up to them. They can decide not to do it. My biggest objection has always been when I've got someone outside saying to me, you shouldn't have slavery in your system because of real world problems. And my view is, well, the real world's got nothing to do with the fantasy world I've created here. Yeah, the real world's the real world, and my fantasy world is a time to escape and to just get away from real world politics. And then when they say, well, you're not allowed it for these reasons, you're not allowed to use games master because the term master is problematic, you're not allowed to, that's when I really get my goat up. And we all have ways that we run games. We all have ways that we do things. And I think that the first step in really having a truly inclusive, diverse hobby, to use those words correctly, is to accept we're all different and we all do things differently. So be respectful of the other table. If they turn around and say, look, we don't like the idea of slaves and slave lords and stuff, so we run it this way, then brilliant. Good on you. Are you all enjoying it? You having a great time? Fantastic. But don't start to tell me how to run my game, and I won't tell you how to run your game. How about we all run the games we want to run, and we'll get on wonderfully with each other. However, I'd like to also cover the kind of bleed through on player versus character, and I think this is an interesting one because I always remember the first time I opened the red box set. So this was the first real sort of tabletop, the basic D&D box set. Opened it up, started to go through it. I wasn't creating a character. I was becoming a fighter or a cleric or a dwarf or an elf, because of course the character classes were just those races. I hadn't had the maturity to understand how to do the role into a character. And it was only through a lot of play, and then second edition came along, the proficiencies helped a lot, because all of a sudden your character wasn't just a fighter, it was a fighter that had these lovely sort of skills that would give it a bit more depth. And it's that maturity that helps a player stop the bleed through where they're going, well, it's me, to it's my character. And then hopefully they've got a really good GM that's running inspiring adventures that takes them on a journey where they can start to make that transition. And as they make that transition, start to put them in these interesting situations where you're challenging the character, but you know what the player wants to do. And the two are opposite. And you put them in those situations to see how they resolve it. The sword with Vicky is a classic one. An intelligent weapon, testing the character. If you thirst for my power and claim it, I will kill you because you're not worthy of it. You need to find my rightful owner. And in turning around and saying, yeah, I will walk away from that vision of power, that's testing not just the player, but making sure the player role plays the character well. If I was in a table with some young players, and I've seen it before, the young players play themselves. they do. It's the only thing they understand. And I would tailor an adventure in a way that you start to try and remind them of the characters they're playing rather than them being players, and help them on those first steps.
Yeah, I remember that. We had some really great adventures. I raised my children on Redbox, and they're 27 and 24. Yeah, they're in their 20s now. They're adults. And I remember one of the my son's birthday party. So I was, herding the cats and DMing for these teenage boys. And it was an adventure. So at one point, I put together a very simple, very classic puzzle. They were all locked in a dungeon cell, and each class was shackled with the answer to freeing the other class. So the warrior had chains that had runes on them. The wizard had chains that were weak. The thief, I'm trying to remember what it was. But they were all opposed of each other. All they had to do was look at the other person, just ask me, hey, what do I see? Whatever. And I just would describe it to them. And they'd be, oh, okay, well, I'm going to read those magic runes. And then bam, his chains come off. And then obviously he'd come over and rip the other chains off and whatever. 2.5 hours later.
Yeah.
No one was free. Anyhow, I got to the point where we were playing Redbox, and I said, okay, so we had his 16th birthday, and I said, all right, we're gonna have the pre-party. So the one weekend I had them all come over and just roll characters. They're like, really? I'm like, fine, roll them up. If you get exceptional rolls, I'll give you a +1 critter or whatever, something, sword or something. And they each came to the party the next weekend with a stack of characters. So I had 5 teenage boys each had a stack of characters, and they're like, all right, what are we going to do? It's like, we're going to have some fun. We're going to learn some lessons. So they start off with the first characters. Okay. Sure enough, one of them goes, well, yeah, I'll just smack that bard in the face. Okay, cool. You just slap the bard in the face, and you're dead, and you're dead, and you're and it just murder time. Somebody else would wander off. Oh, I'm just going to well, they're talking to the people in there. I'm just going to go, because that's what these kids would do. And every one of them had their thing that they would do, and then they'd go off the rails or whatever. It was like, okay, great. You wander down the alley, you find some dudes that are sitting there playing dice. It's like, oh, dude, that's cool. Walks over to them like, man, I'll play your game. They jump up and they mug you and they stab you and kill you because they're like, no, forget it. I was like, maybe I should have stayed with my party, or maybe I should have tried to be more cohesive instead of what my character would do. Yeah, consequences to their actions. And they finally got it after a few characters, but I digress. Thank you for listening to my little story. But what I found wonderful about that is, and hopefully people can begin to get that is, and I brought it up in role playing, because for me, what I see is when we create, it is a form of role playing. We need to put ourselves in a position where we are an actor or a writer or whatever. And I can, I'm not like, whatever, Hollywood. I've been on stage a few times, but the point being is that I know enough that if you don't at some point personify and have some bleed through and allow yourself to really literally physiologically feel what you're doing, your acting is going to suck. And I played a villain, and I would come off the stage, and we would go backstage, and I'm just like, God, I'm so sorry. Is it okay? Because she would act and she would cry, and I was yelling at her, and I'm just like, oh my God, yeah, it's fine. We're good. Because we were, but at the end of it all, we would come off and be like, oh, that dude's an asshole. I'm like, oh, I hate that guy. But my point being is this. you go on the internet and you read this crap, and I will call it crap because I believe that it is crap that people want to, decide that you are a horrible person because you are including whatever you're doing. It's like, dude, get a grip. Just because it's in the game doesn't mean that Dean wants that. It's in his game. Stuff will be in my game that is, or people will play characters. And we did this when we played an evil party, when we said, let's all play lawful evil. Great. It was Geneva Convention war crimes everywhere we went. It was crazy, but we were teenage boys, I don't know, 15, 16, whatever, goofing off, we've already been playing for years. So we were like, let's try something different. Okay. And it was fun. It was like 2 one-shots, and then we went back to saving the day. It's kind of fun. But if my point with that is that if, let's say that you join a table, and I think a lot of times the scenario is this nowadays, is that people will use these online services to find D&D parties, or they might meet someone on the internet, or whatever it is. They'll join a game, or at a convention, they join a game. Just always keep in the back of your head, this is not really them. They're trying to play a character. If I'm pre-coffee dwarf, there's probably a lot less of me in pre-coffee dwarf than there is in post-coffee dwarf, because I'd be like, I probably wouldn't just walk up to somebody, and punch them because they've been talking for more than a minute. And it's that sort of thing. But that was where, I'm glad we went there with that. And I appreciate that. I think that's an important point, is that it isn't the people, And the other part of the point was when we touched on some of the things going on with society. There's some terms we use in NLP. One of them is, there are folks that are my rules for you. Then there's other people that are your rules for me, or no rules for anyone. There's lots of different categories. And what I find is that these folks that are my rules for you folks are the ones that want to go on the internet and say, you have to be this way because I say you must be this way. La, 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 la. We could digress about that. But Sue...
Ad nauseum.
Yeah.
Oh, we could.
Exactly. Yeah. But the point is we're here to have fun. How are we feeling? We are at almost 3:00. How's everybody feeling? Feeling good? Feeling
pretty good.
Happy?
I can go a while longer.
I've had my energy, so I'm good. Ready to roll. All right. Well, let's change it up a little bit. Tell me a story of the craziest batshit bonkers Joker Batman level, just nutso crazy shit that you have done as a character or as a DM that had the whole table there going like, the fuck? What? Okay. And I'll start. We were playing in a back of a restaurant. It was Applanti's, where they tore it down back in the day, right? And we had kind of sort of just got into Dragonlance. Yeah, it was still kind of new back then. So we've gotten into Dragonlance, and I'm just like, oh man, I'm gonna mess with Dave. And I went over to Russ, he was our DM, and I was like, dude, I want to pickpocket everybody. I want to steal all their stuff. I want to have their stuff. I'm just gonna go full Kender on these guys. And they're like, really? Because, it's like, okay. So they come back in from cigarette, and it's like, all right, cool. So, and we had looked at their character sheets. They left them on the tables, and I stole Dave's health potion, and I stole Rick's, ring, and I stole a bunch of stuff from everybody. Just stole it. And so we're sitting there, and we got into a fight, and then, the characters had gotten into a battle in the game. Then after we got done, Dave's all, he was going to drink his health potion, right? And, Rick, so he's like, there's no health potion. Where's the health potion? Everybody's going, what do you mean, dude? It was on my character sheet. What the hell are you talking about, right? He's getting kind of mad. He's like, no, it's not there. Don't know. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? I'd swiped it. And so then I was like, finally, yeah, I have it here. Da, 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 da. I actually did try to do the voice because I had listened to the Dragonlance audiobooks by Peter McNichol. And if any of you, if you haven't done that and you like Dragonlance and you can find them, the cassettes by Random House, they're fantastic. He does the voices of everybody. It's just brilliant. Loved them. So we did that. And like you said, bleed through. He's like, "What the hell, dude? What's wrong?" And people are looking at us, and the waitress is like, "What the?" And we're like, "It's what my character. I'm playing Kinder, dude. Yeah, whatever." And it was just hilarious. We were laughing. Did it again and again, and we got to the inn. He couldn't pay for his room because I had stolen Rick's money. So then there was that. And then we did it again because then we had gone to the blacksmith to get the armor repaired. And he goes, "I need these gauntlets fixed." And one of them was missing a finger. It was fun. That's my story. I want to hear some crazy character role play. Bust it out. Give me some. Who wants to go first? Anybody? Nobody's done crazy shit.
I haven't.
You don't want to talk about it on the internet.
I haven't done anything where I've messed with players, but I have had a situation when I was playing Thea. When I was playing Thea, and unfortunately, I would definitely call this player bleed through, where there was a character or a player opposite me that was starting to stray into the line of making a pact with a demon, and I was a paladin.
Ooh.
So to say that my character got upset was an understatement, but it was almost like some feedback to me. I got upset as a player as well, which is not right. That shouldn't happen. And I got quite upset with the fact that this person was actually it was obviously for power. And the person was setting themselves up to be party leader and all the rest of it. And I actually went, right, that's it. Thea is walking away. And then I went, I'm retiring my character. And that was wrong. And that was really, thank you, Alfie, for that. And that was definitely character sort of player bleed through.
Mm-hmm.
And that was quite challenging. It was quite challenging for the table as well, because we had two players that were basically getting quite touchy, and poor Dean was the GM. And so that's always quite challenging, and that was probably the most sort of mixed up. But I agree with what Zarian said, which is about emotional bleed is the key to an immersive experience. And that's one of the
did I miss
things
that? I'm sorry, Zarian.
I just noticed it. It's lovely. And
Yeah,
I think that
trying to
was
get used to this.
definitely, hey, this is all about this stuff. And we had our first trial live stream earlier. It's difficult keeping track of everything.
I think I need some.
That was
yeah.
real,
I need the eyes that do what's the lizard? I can't even think. My brain's not functioning.
The leopard gecko.
Yeah,
where I've got
cool. Yeah. It does it licking its own eye.
Yeah,
but yeah, that was definitely where you've got player and character bleed. And it was like a feedback loop. We sorted it all out, and it all went perfectly well afterwards. But I think that was the one time it was really sort of messed up. My only other time was
did you
when
pump the brakes and realize you didn't want to stab them with your mechanical pencil in real life. You were like, cool, chill out for a minute.
Sort of ease out a bit, have a cup of tea, not coffee, because that would have made it worse. And it was all good. But I think sometimes you have to remind yourself, this is your character. Cool it a bit. I think the only other time was when I was playing to Anai and I was a member of the Society of the Sensates. That was the Society of Brilliant. It was so much fun. I did everything. I went through every portal. I tried everything once. And that was just superb. I won't mention someone who cut my hand off. And it grew back skeletal. Dean. So that was a character that really just tried everything, did everything, would not say no, which was a real mess at the table at times. If I hadn't done it before, I used to try it. I hadn't done that before. I
Yep.
poured pandemonium. Yay, let's go there.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
That's the best. I think when we were playing this silly game is everybody should just be able to play and have fun with it, get with friends, and be able to experience that. It's wonderful.
And that was brilliant fun, and that was a lot of messing around.
Nice. How about you, Rex? Give me some bonkers.
Well, I'll tell you a story. One of the, and probably the most recent character that I played for any length of time was in a 5th edition game. And he is a half-elven swashbuckler rogue. So he was, he was a rapier slinging swordsman fighter, cutthroat, sort of, not really cutthroat, but ne'er-do-well in some instances, quite dashing though. And in our story, our group had done some things to endear itself to the monarch of the kingdom that we were within, and our story spread across several. We were heroes to a degree at a certain point, and we had come back to the capital or nearby, and we had met with the king before. We had, now at this point we had dealings with the royal the royal family, and at a certain point, our GM was, he's a mature guy, and he's socially cognizant of things, and in his story, he gave my character, who was quite the rogue, the dashing rogue type, a particular moment that was, you would think is pretty wild. We ran into one of those. Well, so we were. He had the opportunity to meet the king's daughter, and my character was like a minor lord, or would receive property and a title, when his forebears deceased. So he was nobility anyway, and the king's daughter, who was married to a baron, ended up wanting to meet the party, and she met my character, and she was quite smitten, and she made the pass at my character, and he most certainly took advantage of that. I had to decide, okay, what is he? How is he? And he's a gambler. He plays, every game session I was saying something about playing cards. He would win money for equipment, etc. He did well as a gambler, and so he's that sort of a rogue type that face man of the group type of character, and you know, and morally flexible, quite morally flexible. And he met her, and he was interested, and so that was one of those situations where, you know, there was an appropriate fade to black. But then and so that moment in and of itself was interesting for him. But the thing that made it wild was the fact that he had to go and meet with the king the next morning and act as though everything was just normal and none of that had happened. Of course, you know, but
Making sure he hasn't got any of her hair on his tunic. Like, okay, is there any evidence?
Yeah, because that would be bad. That would have been really bad. So that was one of those things where it's like, that's just where the story wanted to go, and it went there. And you know, and it was perfect for the character. You know, it spelled out who he was, and I had to be true to that. You know, even though at the table that was a little bit embarrassing. You know, my face turned red, but you know, that's like, no, that's what he would do. And so we played it out, you know, to the degree that it needed to be played out, and you know, it was handled tastefully. That's just that. You asked for something crazy. That would be a crazy moment for you know, me playing. And one of the things that happened that, you know, and I didn't, as a player, I didn't engineer that. That was part of the intrigue that the DM built into the game, and I reacted to. So the fact of meeting, you know, going into that knowing that I had a meeting with the king the next morning was funny. It was just very funny.
That's well
and,
cool.
And
Nice.
there was no like later consequences or anything about that.
She didn't show up 9 months later. She wasn't like, hey.
Not to my knowledge, right? So that's it. So, you know, anyway, that's mine. First thing that popped in my head.
Nice. Go, Dean. Give me something.
Oh dear.
Crazy.
Yes. As a
crazy.
forever DM, my playing days are long in the past. Stop it. But there is one that I remember, and it was early days of actually playing second edition. So I was still very inexperienced. And there was a lot of bleed through on the character, but I was playing a wizard called Nylandra with a group that were doing I believe it was the Ruins of Greyhawk with the 3 towers. And I think it was the Tower of War we were doing to begin with. And we were heading down, and we'd done several levels. I think I was about 3rd or 4th level at the time. And we found a staff, very ornate, powerful staff. So me being the only wizard in the group was given this staff. And during an encounter, I was about to get my splattered by a huge ogre when the staff kind of shifted me ethereally to save my life and then brought me back. And as a player, I was thinking, oh my God, I got something incredibly powerful here. And that kind of bled through to how I was playing this wizard who was slowly now descending into madness around the table and cackling every now and then. And then as I began to learn the abilities of the staff and wielding it, I started to really become quite unhinged. Not just the player, but not just the character, but the player as well. And it got to the point where the DM, a good friend of mine, in between sessions, he said, "I love your role play." And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, well, you've got the staff of Zagig, the mad wizard, and Zagig's spirit exists within the staff. And the way you're bringing that madness out in your character. And at that point, I was like, well, it's just me, kind of. And he went, well, just keep it up. It's brilliant. And I forget how, but I did lose the staff in the end and return to sanity. But I remember as a player, just I'd stopped thinking about what my character would do. And all I was thinking and fixating on was this powerful artifact that was in my hands, and how I could use it just to wield as much destruction and chaos as possible around the table. So it was short-lived, but it was a great learning experience, and I really did have fun around the table. And I think everybody enjoyed seeing my actual descent into madness because of
That's awesome.
this single item.
That is awesome. Yeah, that's the best. I think when you get into the zone, like, you're in it, you're playing it, you're having fun, and you're just there. And then because you there's no more. Oh, it's me doing this. It's like just go, just flow.
Yeah.
And you're in an environment where you can do that. You don't have to consider it. It's just fantastic.
No. I was a wizard with ultimate power, and it was great. Yeah.
Love that. I love that. That's exactly it. And that brings us around to another thing, which is great because here's another. Emotional bleed is key to an immersive experience, and all of you had some of that. So here's one thing. When I'm considering playing a role versus role playing, and one thing I do want to point out, if I haven't pointed out exactly to everybody, is that I don't really think in terms of right and wrong. I think that if you play a role, if you show to the table and you're engaged, and this is turned off, and you're there, that's my no phones at my table. The blue lightning, right, Rex? That's when you get the blue lightning. Blue lightning kills cell phone signals.
Yeah, you've heard of rolling for a wandering monster. Roll for wandering damage.
Oh God, yeah, yep. Wandering damage, wandering monsters all the time. They drift off. Guess what just happened? Yeah, love it. I digressed. So where was I? Yes, bleed through. So if that's what you're gonna do, that's fine. Show up. Hey, cool. I'm here. I'm gonna play. I'm gonna be this. We're gonna do it. Cool. Do I need to go, I'm going to kill you with my big mace in your face, how I talk? You don't have to. You can if you want. It's cool. As long as you're like, okay, in it to win it. You got to be in the game. Don't be not in the game. But if you are on that other side and you show up in garb, if you show up in a tunic and you're like, all right, yeah, let's do this, and you're almost LARPing, you're not quite throwing the tennis ball lightning bolts, great. That's great too. That's fine. As long as you can, when you're done and you walk away, you don't go up to Dean and be like, Dean, what the hell is your problem, dude? Why were you cackling like a maniac? You're an asshole. No, you're there to do your thing. Where I'm going with that is that the bleed through, and I want to click on the thing again. Wrong thing. I'm not doing the right thing. Sorry, everybody. I'm learning how this goes through. Okay, emotional bleed. I want to talk about the emotional bleed going the other way. I want to talk about how do you feel about what we take away from this? Why is role play important? And why do we even bother? Because we could all play whatever, Monopoly or Tiddlywinks or whatever the hell, Why? Why even? And on a piece of that, because what I think of my why is what you come away with, how you, when you're done, when you bring a piece of that character, that adventure, that story with you, at least for me, doesn't mean I'm going to maybe not go totally to the extreme, but it has, there were plenty of times in my childhood where after playing D&D, it made it easier to deal with, having my head bounced off a locker and, I'm not exaggerating, but, and we won't need to go there, but point being is, why is it important? And what do you take away from it? Do you think that some of it bleeds through? Does it bleed through for you? What do you think? And I'm going to go roll this here. We'll just 1, 2, 3. Dean's 1, Rex's and Vicky's 3. 2. Yep, that's you, Vex.
Oh,
yeah, we went in circles this way, went in circles that way, but I was like, let's roll. Let's see who goes first.
Okay, so The bleed through.
Yeah, bleed through back to you. What do you think we take away from role playing? Why is role playing important? Is it important? Does it even matter at all? You know, and have you or do you have things that you've now brought to you and go, take it with you?
I believe that as a species, we have told stories for as long as we could talk. And maybe even before we could really talk, we could draw.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go to the south of France and look at Lascaux and, you know, the paintings of the hunts that are on those cave walls. We don't know what their language was, but we know that they told stories. They told stories with pictures. Anyway, I don't need to belabor the point, the point that we have told stories since the beginning of our time. And those are important. And the reason that those are important is because it is, we connect ourselves to the people who are around us in our time, and we project the marks we leave in this life forward into the next generation, just as the marks of those made by those who came before us are projected into our lives. We make sense of our human condition by telling those stories that have been told around the fires since time immemorial. And for me, my understanding, my feeling about what and why we do this is for that purpose. And not and this goes really to for those who wish to establish real narrative, real story outside of the dice within a game, and those who don't. In either case, you know, your story might be, I made this decision to cast this spell, and this die was rolled, and this was the result. And I did these things. Or I made the decision to have this character do this thing because they have this mindset that's different from mine, but it created this situation in the world that we played in. And that's what's important. So it doesn't matter if you're into narrative or if you're into pure die rolling, you know, mechanics. It doesn't matter who you are. We all do this to tell ourselves stories. That is the ultimate reason we do it, as far as I'm concerned. We are, at the end of the day, armed with the dice that we have, the bards of our own tales.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's my answer.
Nope. One. I rolled a 1.
Yeah,
I'm just going to turn the stream off. I rolled a 1.
Yeah.
Fail.
I think Rex has hit the heart of this, which is it's about storytelling. To focus now on the bleed through from the game back to us.
Mm-hmm.
During those stories, it's the emotional connection you get, the feelings you feel that really make the game. The best games that I have run, with players that have absolutely loved it, are the games that take you on that roller coaster. You're not winning every fight. Sometimes you're on the back foot and you are going down into the ditches. As adventurers, you're struggling. And then you start to get the upper hand. You come back harder. You suffer setbacks. You then push back even harder. And then eventually that victory is earned. And it's the emotions you get round the table. you're telling that story, which is at the heart of it, but it's also the bleed through of emotions back to you. The players are feeling what their characters are feeling, and that is quite addictive. A game where there's no real challenge, it gets boring fast. But a game where you have that constant challenge, you have that constant back and forth, you have those moments where you're dreading what's about to happen, and then you're celebrating your victory soon after. And whether it be the combat, whether it be what the bad guy's doing, whether it be part of your backstory that's come to bite you on the ass, and you're there thinking, oh my God, how am I going to get out of this? And it works best when the whole group are experiencing it at the same time. So yeah, the heart of that story, and then driving the emotions from that story back to the players. I think that's why we do it, because that is incredibly addictive. And when I run a game, seeing players so happy around the table, seeing them celebrate their victories, it makes me feel so good. And that's why for the past 38 years, I've run games.
Vicky, I'm not going to roll again.
Bravo.
That'd be my dice will not listen. Go ahead.
For me, mainly as a player, because I've only really GM'd once, really, what I've taken away is being part of something that's bigger than just me, being part of that story, being the hero, a chance to be a hero. I mean, I work in IT. It's not exactly the most heroic profession, is it really?
I did that in my past life. I feel you. We'll talk someday.
I can relate.
It allows.
Yeah. Does your screen say safe mode? Okay, you're in the right place. I'll digress in a moment. Sorry, Vicky, go ahead.
It allows me to be a hero. It allows me to work with other people to be part, to build something, which is that story, which is those connections, but something that I take back into my normal life. And this is where my character, all the stuff my character does, the story does, that I take away, is it gives me an escape. And what I find, especially when you're part of that story and you've got it going on and you've got to wait for your next session and you just want to play, is I will be going to bed at night and I might have some real stress at work, and the stress is playing on my mind. Do you know where I go to escape? My character will pick up and go, right, let's go down this story, and I will start thinking about my character. I will start thinking about what she's doing, where she is, what's happening around the story, and it takes me away from the stress of real life, and it gives me that complete escapism and lifeline. That's what that bleed through does for me. The hardest point I find is when we haven't got a game. So luckily we're about to start up 2 new games, but we haven't had a game now for several months. Oh, yeah. And I lose that escapism connection. And then I really struggle. I need that. It's an off switch for me. I can go there in my head at night in bed and think about my character, and it removes a lot of that stress. Take it away from me, that stress has got nowhere to go. And Dean gets it in the neck. So it's a good thing he likes running games. But yeah, that's some of the bleed back that I get. It really helps me day to day. It gives me something else to think about.
That's awesome. I really appreciate that you went there. I was hoping that everybody would, that we'd have this panel. Gosh, you guys are great. You can come back again. That's awesome. I can provide just as many snacks as I did this time. You'll all get some. So
like snacks.
Thanks. It's absolutely brilliant. And so what I'm hearing is that, you've got the escapism, you've got the qualities of the character that you can, bring into your own. You have the fact that you have some adventures that are now part of who you are, and that we're doing it to collectively tell stories, that we are bringing to life a story. And I think that, so we'll start there. The brilliance that I see in role playing and in the shift from passive story to active story, I think is one of the actual critical moments in there. We've heard the stories, and we can imagine ourselves as Odysseus, we can imagine ourselves as Jason, we can imagine ourselves as whoever. And when I think about that, and then what you were saying, I remembered the scene when Bastian goes into the bookstore, and hopefully everybody's seen this. If not, go watch it. Never Ending Story. And I'll give you a little spoiler, but he goes into the bookstore, and the guy goes, "Oh yeah, this is a place for books, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I know books. I've read Treasure Island. I've read 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I've read this. And he goes, "Well, so you were Captain Nemo trapped in your sub?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, weren't you afraid that you couldn't get out of the sub?" And there's the difference, is that you have passive stories. He'd only experienced passive stories up until that point. Now he's going to crack open some tabletop. Now he's going to be an active story. Now it's going to be where you are going to have that emotional connection through the role play at whatever level of role play you have. It depends on the game you're playing. I had the great fortune to play Fight in the Skies with Mike Carr at my first convention. He's awesome. Dude's awesome. He was my wingman, and I played with him, and we played, and he taught me how to play, and we were having this great time. And I noticed people were just playing. I was like, okay, but I'm at a convention, man. And I looked at him. Can I role play? Is there any role play? And people were like, what the hell is this guy doing? I'm like, he's like, yeah. And it's like, I throw my scarf into the wind, and I shake my fist at that guy over there, and I say, I'll try to shoot me again, and I will come over there, and I will get you. So for some reason, I'm French.
French dwarf.
And it was great. I couldn't help it, man. These guys were like, they were so serious. They're like, we're doing this, and my aileron took a hit, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude,
yes,
let's go. And where I'm going with that is that, so we're taking these things with us. We're telling these stories. We're becoming active participants. And when you brought up that you're in a place where you have that escapism, and you have the parts of your character that you can incorporate and you can go to in your mind, and it feels good. That's very important. So my point to that is, as we're playing these games, if you are watching this and wondering about role playing, and you go on the internet and you hear people saying, you can't do this, you can't do that, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, you will be bad if you do this, you are bad if you do that, I encourage you to turn all of that off and realize that, we're here to explore and have fun and play. And if you ever find yourself in a group that says, no, you are bad for this, you are bad, maybe get a different group.
Yeah.
You really need to be able to be in a position where you can have that freedom to express yourself, to feel those feelings, to have that with you, to carry it on with you. So that, because for me, if someone came to me and said, well, you can't do that because it's bad. Well, now what? I can't, you don't have the freedom to go the spectrum. You can be, this is my armor, and you can eat off of my armor. It is so perfectly armor, and you can just, and it's like, and I am killing the demons, and or you could be on the other side of the coin, and you can be sitting there going like, come on, kill that last unicorn. Let's go. Put on the black dress, Lady Eagle. Let's have some fun. Eat from my table. Legend, and experience that and take whatever you want to take from it. And that's where I was going with that. So thank you again. That was brilliant. I think that's where we wanted to go. So we are now at 3:34. I'm feeling good, but we can begin to wind it up, how is everybody feeling? What are you thinking? We're at, what is it, 2.5?
I'm
Sure.
still under the weather, so I'm hitting my limit at this point.
Yeah, that's kind of where, yep, I'm there. So we'll go ahead and we'll start winding this down. And so some of the more important things that I wanted to touch on was that, and correct me if I get this wrong from our discussion here of everybody here, that it's good to have clear understandings of where we're going with things. So if you're going to be playing a tabletop RPG, it's good to consider, what is this? What game is it? For one, you can get an idea from the game, because there are games that are obviously PG-13, and then there's games that are hard Rs, just because of the game's content. But you also might want to read the room, check in, and when you do that, check in with yourself and see, where do I want to go? What do I want to get from this? What am I going to do with this? You know, that sort of a thing. We also discussed the difference between a player character and a character. Very important. Yeah, right? So, because your character can be the drow, what was she? Queen, princess? What did she turn into, a goddess?
Yeah, she was the high priestess of Alestre. But
So she's like, yeah, coal black evil.
And ended up, yeah. No, she was actually good. So Alestre is a good deity, and
Okay.
yeah.
So she was doing the dritz thing. Okay.
Yeah, she ended up becoming the avatar of Alestre. I'm looking at Dean, I can't remember.
Okay.
But she
So she was
it was a campaign
Yeah.
that went right the way up to 20th level. So of
Gotcha.
course at that level you're doing big things. Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Alestre she's in particular a drow goddess,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
she's sort of the opposite number to Lolth.
She's the goddess of all the drow outcast, and she leads them to the surface.
Mm.
Is that a 5th edition thing? Is that
No,
my brain is not?
Second.
Yeah, no.
Second. Well,
Second.
first I think
Second.
it was first and second.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, okay. My brain. I guess I stopped at Lolth and I never went up further. My fault.
Yeah, there's more depth to them. In '91, I began DMing the Against the Giants, and then the Drow series, and I absorbed every Drow thing I could before I ran that, and I turned those 4 modules into 3 years. But the Illustrae certainly comes up, and there's depth. There was always depth to that particular race. They're not quite as 2-dimensional as many today would like to make out that they were.
Yeah, there's 5th columns of Illustrae followers within Mensa Baranza and many of the dwarven cities, and they'll help get slaves out and stuff like that.
I put them in Erel Haisinlu as well.
Yeah,
that's going to be
really good fun.
Nice.
And it was quite a challenge as well, because of the whole way that it was all the character had managed to escape the Underdark and was trying to bring others with her. So that was always a challenge, and it wasn't easy. But it was a really fun campaign.
Yeah,
right on. That's cool. Yeah, Well, that's a very good point. That maybe we'll table that discussion of reality versus fantasy, and where are the lines, and what are we doing, and why are we doing it. Man, think about that. Put a pin in that. But in playing a role versus role playing, and knowing how to, that was part of why I also asked everybody here today, because I want people to start kind of getting an idea of how to, like, how do you role play? Why do you role play? And I think we've touched on some very important topics. If we're reading the room, how far do we go? Do we not go quite that far? Do we see to our own personal needs in our character, or do we let our characters try to hopefully be part of the group? Maybe don't do mixed alignment. It's probably a bad idea. And the fact that players are not their characters, characters are not their players. And then but on that level as well, what do we take from it? You know, what do we bring from that into our lives? How does it enrich us? How does it become part of us? And it can be all the way, I think, that Rex touched on. It can be all the way from just having the story, being part of the story. You know, you could even have it in a simple war game. You're still getting that story. You're still having that joy of gaming. Because for me, it's about who you play with, not what you play. So you're having the joy of it. And you take that with you. All the way up to you're trying to be, you know, whatever critical role, you're trying to do that and really theatrical. Yeah, you know, whatever you want to do. That's fine.
That's always, that's really performative, isn't it? And I think that's one of the things I'd say is that being your character, you're not always going to be highly performative, because you don't walk down the road going, "Oh, I'm going to go to the shops." You know, you don't do that. So, you know, why would you do that?
Depends on how many pubs are behind you, I think. I don't know. I mean,
admittedly, if I've been to the odd pub or 10, that might happen. But, you know,
I thought you were very performative when we're walking back in the middle of winter from the Students' Union and you're singing the Goblin song down the street. Very performative, honey. Very performative.
That's a very bad song, and that's a very late at night, and it is very inconsiderate. And I look back on my youth with shame.
And not some small part of amusement.
Yeah.
Yep.
Long time ago now.
Oh, that's great. I love that. Okay. Well, we'll start with some parting thoughts, and we'll just do the circle again. So we'll go ahead with Dean. So a couple of things I'll ask of you. One is, if you were going to nutshell, just put it in a little box and go, okay, I am a brand new person. I just walked into your shop off your comic book shop. You're the DM. You got your game, and I'm a brand new whatever. I walk in there and I have no clue what a role playing game is. And I go, I understand playing games. I've played board games. What's the difference between, hey, I'm the Thimble and I land on Boardwalk and blah blah blah. That's my game. Whatever. I just play a game, versus role playing, because now I'm trying to be a dwarf fighter. How do you even, you know, if you were just going to give me that in like a paragraph, say, what's the difference?
That's I guess the difference would be, in one, you are part of a story, playing a character that is invested in that story, where the rules will vary depending on the story itself. The other one, you're playing a game that has very rigid rules, very strict controls, and there is a defined winner.
So one of them is a permeable, transmutable. You're part of you're interactive. Yeah. The other one is, I am on the green square. Now I am on the blue square.
Yeah. And one of us is going to be the winner, and well done. You've won the game. Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Rex? If you put it in a box and told a complete green newbie, what is it?
What is role playing?
Yeah. Playing a role versus role playing. Like what?
There is role playing, and there's role playing.
There you go.
ROLL, ROLE.
Mm-hmm.
One's about the mechanics, and the other's about you being someone else.
Nice.
Starting out, you may not be able to be someone else very easily, but eventually, it's muscle. And eventually you'll be able to drop behind the eyes of someone else and project them instead of yourself into a game. And that is the essence of it.
Nice. Okay, Vicky, I have no clue. The hell am I doing here? You got weird math rocks and crap everywhere. What's going on?
It's very simple. You're all together to do some collaborative storytelling. There's no winners. You win if you all come away having a good time. Your shiny math rocks help tell you whether you've been successful or not on something that you're trying to do. And the main thing now is sit back, relax, and if you get stuck or you're not sure what to do, just ask. That's what we're all here to do. There's no right or wrong. That's it.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah. Oh, I'll add mine. I think we're there for our mini vacation with friends. And in anything that you're going to do, if you go to the movie, okay, 2 hours of mini vacation, you're just plugged in. Okay, cool. Rocky beat the heck out of Mr. T. Good deal. Or you're involved in a mini vacation with friends and you're being collective and then you have your escapism and you have some fun. And that's your difference. And whichever one works for you. If it's the board game, that's fine. It's still the same thing. It's just not as much, I guess, performance. You're still, how am I going to pay this rent? I can't believe I landed here again. We used to make the kids do chores if they owed us rent. That would work. It's like, hey, you don't have to mortgage your property. You just do the dishes. That's great. Yeah. Integrate your life.
Win-win.
Yes, integrate your role play. That's how you integrate. You see somebody who's taller than you. It's like, that person's an elf. No. A lot of people are taller than me. Anyhow, great. Thank you very much. And then we'll button this up with, I definitely want to help promote what you've got going on. From what I've heard, it's wonderful. I'd love to help in any way that I can. Give me a call.
Thank you.
Let's see what we can do. Untold Destiny. Role play versus role playing. Give me a percentage. How much of it is playing a role and how much of it is role playing, or is it just table dependent?
I would say as a player, it's a heavily immersive role-playing system, but the mechanics and the dice actually support that. So it means that you're still a roll. You still get to roll your shiny math rocks because we like them. And that really helps. But I would say it's a good 50-50, but immersion is key. You can be your character with Untold Destiny. And that's from a player's perspective.
You could be your character,
Dean,
but not mazes and monsters. Don't
No.
go there.
No, don't. I would say it would vary very much from table to table, but from what I've seen, when players are creating their characters, they're becoming their characters at the same time. I went through character creation with Jack on. Our first show is tomorrow, actually. Going live with Jack, the Lost Law Scholar. He had an idea of the character. We went through character creation. At the end, it was completely changed, and he had a much better immersive idea of what the character was. He could visualize the character, how they would operate, how their mannerisms, their history, their background. And there's a lot of mechanics in place to support that. They're not complicated mechanics. They're simple choices you make as you create your character, but they flesh out that character. So at the end of it, you've now got a very fleshed out character that's got a place in the world, it's got a family, they've had a background, and they got a direction they're going in. So I would say I think Vicky's kind of right, kind of 50-50, but
yeah.
If a table pushes more into the role play, it supports it. If a table prefers more just rolling dice, it supports that too.
Nice. Very nice. I look forward to that. That sounds fantastic. Scratches that itch. How about you, Rex? Do you have any projects, any irons in the fire, anything we can plug other than your awesome YouTube channel? He has a YouTube channel. Go watch his YouTube.
Not anything in the fire to plug at this point. Just happy to help you get launched here, and I hope to see more of this.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much, and I hope that we're all going to be enjoying ourselves as we role play and play our roles and do our stuff and get on or going. Any final thoughts? Anything that you want people to know? Like if you had someone that, again, the situation, there's somebody out there on the internet, there's somebody watching this, and they're going, "I watched this because I wanted to know." Maybe they don't know, or they're looking for ideas or looking for thoughts, looking for things. What do you want to tell them? You got an opportunity to tell them something you think is important about this.
The one thing I see a lot of is people trying to get into running a role play game and how difficult it is. And the advice I give time and time again, if you want to run a game, get a bunch of friends who want to play that game and then just start running it. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to flounder. But if you've got a good group of friends around you, they won't care. They're just playing a game. They're enjoying the game with you. And then you learn from there. And it's all about learning. The more you play, the more comfortable it becomes, both as a player and running the game, and the easier it becomes. And when it becomes easier, then you just enjoy it far, far more. It becomes second nature. So my best advice, get a bunch of friends, start now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And don't be afraid of the stuff that you see on the internet, where you've got people being adversarial and being horrible to each other. If I have, and I'm going to say this now as a girly, I have played at lots of tables. I have yet to find a table that has ever been mean, horrible, nasty. Every time I've role played, I have been welcomed.
Wait a minute. Get my pen. Say that again. Notes. Okay. Mean, nasty. I'm doing this.
Been mean, no one's nasty. No one's been grumpy with me. Everybody has welcomed me at the table from the point when I didn't know what I was doing to now. I've never had people be horrible. And you know what? Most of the people in the role-playing area, they just want to have fun. That's all we want. We just want to have fun. So just turn up. If you don't know what you're doing, ask and just relax and have fun. That's my advice.
Hell yeah. 100%. 100%. I've got that list written down. That's what we're doing when we play, Vicky. Be ready.
Yeah, be really mean.
Pre-coffee dwarf.
Yep.
Pre-coffee dwarf.
What do you want them to know, Rex? What nugget are they going to take into their heart, carry on with them?
The fact that God has given us the ability to imagine and to deal with thoughts that make our hearts soar, SOAR and SORE, and that we get to do that in this way with people who we get to share those thoughts and, frankly, those stories with. That is something I'm grateful to God for. It's part of the human condition, and it always has been. And it's how we make sense of life. And when we can do that with lovely people, there are few things better in this life.
Yep. And I think that we can have all of that. All of us can have all of that in this medium. Thank you to everyone that put it together, because now we have it. It's amazing. So I'm grateful, very grateful. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the switch unless there's anything, nobody else has got anything left. I think we're good on Kitty
Vicky,
Wants Attention.
Very great to meet you.
Lovely being with you tonight.
Thanks, Rex.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thanks for having
Graf.
us.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate it very much. I'm going to end the stream. You guys want to hang out for just 2 seconds? I'm going to go ahead and push the button. Let me see.
Thank you.
If it works. If it doesn't work, I'll flip on a Discord.
Bye, everybody.
Good journey.